Welcome back, everyone. In the words of Vince McMahon, where the hell have you been? The Figure 4 podcast is back. My name is Doug. Hey, I missed you guys. And we got a great show coming up. We're talking about championship belts. My brother Donald hopped on the show. We had a great conversation. We started with our own top 10 list. And because we don't think there are any nice belts in the world of professional wrestling right now, our list was from all the past. So I'm going to stop talking. Enjoy the show, people.
Some of these you're probably going to be like, really? I was going to do basically like a worst to first kind of thing, but I'm like, there's some really bad belts out there.
Oh man, they're awful.
I decided to go with I think it's a decent list. Yeah, I think it's a decent list.
Okay, so what's your number 10?
Okay, so number 10, I went with the NWA belt from 73 to 86, or as you want to call it, like the Ric Flair before the big gold.
The dome belt. Okay. Why did you go with that? That's your number 10?
That's my number 10.
Okay. This is going to be an interesting list then.
Like I said, I mean, you're some of these are going to be like, okay. Some of them you're going to be like, what? No, I went with that as 10. I mean, it's not one of my personal favorites, but it's an icon in the industry.
Yes.
You know, like when you see that belt, you think of Ric Flair and Steamboat, you know, or the early days of the NWA.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Dusty Rhodes, it's Harley Race, it's Terry Funk.
Exactly. You know, like those are the guys that kind of, you know, really put the business on the map. And that's the reason that I went with that as my number 10, just because it's an iconic look. It's not necessarily one of my favorites, but I had to put it on the list just because.
That's one that I always said that there's 5 belts that I want to collect. And when I get those 5, I'm all done. But it's probably going to wind up being 6 or 7 by the time I'm done. That's one of them. I used to own the Figures Inc. version of that NWA title. I had it when Eric first moved up here.
Okay.
And but it was a Figures Inc. I mean, it was an okay replica for the time. It was a really good replica. But now there's makers out there that do a fantastic job of it, right? But that's definitely going to be another one that I have to put back in. So you went with the Dome Globe for your number 10.
Yeah.
I went with the ECW. My number 10 is the ECW television title. Now this is one Rob Van Dam wore probably. Well, it was the last TV title they had before the company went under. They had 2 versions of the TV title. One of them kind of looked like the Winged Eagle.
Okay.
That was the first TV title that they had, I think. I could be wrong. Right. But then they went with this one. And I always call it the RVD. Oh, who was the guy he always used to fight? They had Jerry Lynn. Him and Jerry Lynn, man, had matches for that TV title. I always said the greatest match of all time was Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man at WrestleMania 3.
Yep.
RVD and Jerry Lynn is a close second, at least a close second. It's an amazing. If you've never seen RVD and Jerry Lynn, they had two matches for the ECW television title.
Right. And
you just have to watch it. Now, this was back when RVD was in his prime, right?
Right.
But that's my number 10, was the ECW World Television title. If you can't think of it, Google it. I liked it. It was a cool looking belt for the time.
I'll have to look it up. I don't know if I was telling you, but I got this add-on for Cody. There's 2 of them. There's one called Wrestlers, and then there's another one. Oh God, what is it? Like Pure Wrestling or something like that. And they've got like a lot of the modern stuff. So like the NXT, AEW, they've got some really old matches from like WWF, WWE. Not so much WCW, but there is some ECW stuff on there. So I'll have to see if I can find some of their matches.
Is it an on-demand thing, or you just have to watch whatever they put on?
It's not on demand. Like you can go through and you can search by year, you can search by league.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Now there's some that don't work because through Cody, like they try to link it up with like the main feeds that are on YouTube.
Right.
And for whatever reason, and this is way over my level, you know, of tech stuff. You have to make your own YouTube code in order to play it on Cody. So I'm like,
oh wow.
Yeah. And I tried searching just on YouTube for the matches. And I mean, with ads that pop up every 3 minutes, it's just a pain in the ass. So I'm like,
it's getting worse too. Some of the ads now are like 45 seconds long, and they're really pushing to get this. Oh, pay the money so you don't get any commercials now. I don't use YouTube enough for that, but
yeah. But I mean, for the most part, like I've been able to go back to like the '92 Rumble when Flair won the belt. There's you know, like they've got different documentaries on like all of the wrestlers. Like there's, you know, the career of Bret, Hogan, Luger, Undertaker. Like there's 2 or 3 different documentaries on just the Undertaker.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool just to kind of go back and, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, you know.
It's a nostalgia thing. Like there's stuff that I completely forgot about, and that's what I like. Like I've got the network and it's on demand, but I can't watch it on the television. I have to come down. I use my Mac because I got a 27-inch screen here. But they've got it all categorized to pay-per-views, to just shows they used to make. Like Primetime Wrestling used to be hosted by Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. I still sit back and laugh my ass off at those two. They were awesome. They got Saturday Night's Main Event. They've got it all categorized. But they've got every pay-per-view ever made by any company. It's pretty sweet. You know, well, of course, except AEW, of course. But
right.
Okay, so who's your number 9?
Number 9. Now, this one, we kind of talked about this one a little bit not too long ago, probably back whenever I first started getting back into wrestling. So go back, you know, maybe about a month ago or so.
Yeah.
It was the Andre belt that was never used from WrestleMania 3.
Yes. Beautiful belt. An absolutely beautiful belt.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Fucking huge, too. I went with that because I like that as an upgrade at the time for what they were switching from if Andre had won it.
Yes.
But they were still kind of keeping some of the similar features from Hogan's belt from Mania 3.
Yep.
But yeah, that was my number 9.
That was a nice belt because I mean now the one Hogan I can't remember what they call it, the Hogan 86 or the Hogan 87. I used to have that belt too, but it was only 2 millimeters thick. It was again it was Figures Inc., right? WWE before WWE shop. The belt was nice for its day, but I kind of wish that Hogan had wore that, like. Just to keep it. Like, first of all, it's a screw you, Andre. You lost. I'm going to wear the belt that you were going to wear. And then he could go back. But they didn't. They kept that belt for a little while. And you know what's funny? During that match, before it started, it was Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura doing the color commentary. Yep. And I think the bell had just rang. And Gorilla Monsoon said, you know, Jess, win, lose, or draw, this is the last time the Hulkster's going to wear that belt in the ring. So after WrestleMania 3, which was April or March, whatever it was, they were supposed to get rid of that belt. Now, why they didn't, I don't know. I think they might have been switching to the Winged Eagle, but maybe it wasn't ready. I don't know. I really don't know. Because, and then that main event that Hogan lost the title, that Andre pinned him, and they had the 2 referees that were identical and stuff. Now, in the interview backstage, he was wearing that belt that he wore to WrestleMania 3, that he fought Andre with. When he came out to the ring, he was wearing the Winged Eagle. So who knows if it was pre-taped? I don't know how it works. But that Andre belt, man, there are some makers out there that can do a beautiful version of that belt. Now it's going to cost you. You're probably going to pay $700 US for it. But one guy on, I think it's on Brothers of the Belt, he got it, and he said it weighs about 17 pounds.
Holy Jesus!
Yeah, it's like, I think he said the strap is 5.5 feet long or something.
Well, yeah, I mean it was an Andre cut,
and it's just he said it was like 15 to 17 pounds or something stupid, and I was like, holy Christ! Like, imagine what the shipping would cost on that. You know, like,
if you go to hang that on the wall, like you're gonna have to use a stud finder.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, seriously.
Like,
Like that weighs
wow.
more than some of my frames that I got jerseys in.
Yep.
Like, no, that's a nice one.
Now, did they ever do any promos with that belt or anything like that, or was it the first time we ever saw it was on Piper's Pit and that was it?
It was in Piper's Pit, but it was also briefly used for posters in Hogan's movie No Holds Barred.
Uh-huh.
Only it was on white leather. Now
Gotcha.
in No Holds Barred, he did wear the winged eagle, and it was on a white strap. But there were a couple of promos like that he took, like he was in his Rip outfit and stuff like that. But he was wearing the Andre belt on white leather. Now I don't
Yep.
know what that was but as far as I know, they've never used that belt for anything. It was on Piper's Pit, and that was it.
You know what? It'd be interesting to see that show where they go around and they collect all of like former wrestlers' gear, like their ring attire. I'd love to know if someone actually just has that in their collection and
I
what the
did
WWE.
hear that in Los Angeles, or no, sorry, in Las Vegas. Now, I heard this or I read something about it maybe 5, 10 years ago, that belt had actually been donated just like as a piece of memorabilia to, what's the name? Rockstar, they
Hard
were
Rock Cafe.
Hard Rock Cafe in Las
Okay.
Vegas or somewhere, that they had got the belt and they just had it on display.
Okay.
Now I read that like 5 or 10 years ago. I don't know if it's true. I don't know, but I also never heard what happened to it after. It just kind of disappeared type thing. But yeah, it would be cool if someone had that because it's never been used,
No,
and
and that's
just to see what kind of shape it's in now.
yeah.
You know. Sorry, I'm drinking whiskey and this is damn good. You gotta have fun. Okay, my number 9. Where am I here? I got it. You know what? I had the Andre belt as well. I did. There you go. Great minds. So I could take that off the list. No, absolutely. One of the very nice belt. It's a shame it wasn't used. Like I said, when Hogan won at WrestleMania 3, I wish he had worn it just to almost like stick it to Andre and then
Yep.
switch back to his belt. Did you know there's a mystery Hulk Hogan belt, a secret
Oh,
belt that he wore for like a week
really?
and he hated it and he got rid of it? It was, have you ever seen back in the NWA, they had the 6-man tag team titles.
Oh God.
I think the belt was similar to that, and there was actually a little picture of Hulk Hogan's face on the belt, like on this belt that he wore for like a week. I'm not kidding. This is no joke.
Did they look like the TV title from NWA?
No, no,
Okay, I'm thinking of something else then.
no.
But I know there was a belt that Hogan wore that looked similar to the television title.
Oh yeah, that was the Hogan 85 or whatever the hell it was called. There were two
Yeah.
versions of that. There was one where it was like silver and it had red lettering, and then the
Yep.
next one was like silver and black, and the side plates were gold. That was a nice belt. That was a very.
Yep.
I think they call that the Hogan 85 or
Okay.
something. But no, that was a beautiful belt too. But this other belt that Hogan had, he wore for a week, and it had a picture of him, just his face on the bottom of it, and it still said World Wrestling Federation champion and all that stuff on it. But I think he wore it for a week, and no, I don't want this anymore. It looks ridiculous. But the Andre belt, yeah, beautiful, beautiful belt. All right, since we're both great minds, what's your number 8?
Number 8, we're probably not going to be the same. We're not going to be on the same page here. I went with the undisputed belt. So basically, after Jericho had won both the Big Gold and the WWF, they came out with that one that was supposed to be the undisputed.
Yep, yep.
I liked the direction they were going in with it. It was something new, like they're getting away from the tradition, like the traditional company belts. Um, I didn't like the idea of putting the champion's name on it. I think they could have done without that. But I mean, I get it though. They're kind of sticking with it's a mashup between the WWE, it's a mashup with the WCW.
Yes,
You know,
you got to keep
based
some kind of similarities there with the legacy and stuff.
yeah. Um, I think Lesnar and Triple H, they probably held that one the longest before they ended up changing it up again. I can't even remember what they changed it up to, but that was my number 8 was the undisputed belt.
They had actually, well, there was that belt, and then they came out with a version too that was like twice the size. It was the same thing, only it was twice the size. I liked the smaller belt. I thought the version 2 was too damn big. I mean, on Brock Lesnar, it looked big. And then when Eddie Guerrero won it, it was like, Jesus Christ, like it covered half his chest. It was unbelievable. Like I did like the first version, the smaller version, yes, and it was a nice belt, and that's a popular belt in all the belt groups too. But when they switched to the version 2, it made it bigger. I didn't like them at all. All right, my number 8, the NWA Tag Team titles that Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard wore in the NWA. I always thought that they were beautiful belts. I remember they were always on black. They were on black leather all the time. And then they came out with purple. And I thought, fuck, what are they doing? Because you just never saw that. It was a championship belt for the most part, at least when we were growing up, always was on black leather. Always. And I only found out, it wasn't up until 10 years ago, I found out that Ric Flair's big gold belt, that was on light brown leather when they first made it. It was just all the booze and the sweat and the oil that turned the leather black. And I had no idea. But that's my pick at number 8 because I always loved those tag team titles. I thought they were there was them and the Bulldog tags. I thought were the nicest tag team belts in our generation. What's your number 7?
So for 7, this is going to kind of tie in from an earlier belt that I had mentioned. I went with Hogan WrestleMania 3.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I always liked the look of that belt. I think if they had just added like leather to it to make it extended, I think it would have looked ridiculous on Andre. So in a way, I'm kind of glad that they came up with the bigger one for Andre, if that was going to be the outcome of the match. On Hogan, I mean, you see that belt, you think of Hogan right away. I think he was the only one that ever actually wore that belt.
He was the only one that wore that belt. He was the only one that wore the 2 belts before that.
Yep.
So he had 3 belts. He was the only, 4 if you count the one he wore for a week and said, screw this, give me back my belt. Yep. But he was the only one. I thought it would have been cool if they had given Mr. Wonderful a shot at that belt, because him and Hogan battled for damn near a year, 6 months or a year, all over the world, and made a butt ton of money. I think they should have gave him a run with it, because there was a few times he just took that belt and Heenan put it on it, and you know what? He looked good wearing that belt. And he would have been a believable world champion, especially with Bobby Heenan with him. I mean, even let him have it for 5 months and then put it back on Hogan if you want. But
and the reason that I'm surprised that they never pursued that storyline is because they had history. Like they were buds, they became enemies. Orndorff was whatever. He became a douchebag heel. And so, I'm like, okay, there's a storyline there. They could have done something with that, but they never did.
Hogan and him went 6 months or a year. That cage match where the two of them dropped to the floor at the exact same time. That would have been the time to put that belt on Orndorff, in my opinion. They could have ran with that. And like Hogan himself said, in a year, me and Paul made millions. We made a lot of money with that angle. Now, you take that belt off of Hogan, say in that cage match, and put it on him for just 6 months. Well, the fans are going to be like, ugh! Their jaws are going to drop. Hogan actually lost the belt. You're going to sell out arenas again for another 6 months or a year, having these guys beat the shit out of one another, Easy.
Now, I wonder how much of that was, how much of the creativity was Hogan not wanting to put Orndorff over, not wanting to drop the strap.
See, everyone talks about Hogan being a big politician and having his that doesn't work for me, brother. His creative control. I don't think he was really like that back then. I don't think that really started coming around until the days of WCW.
Okay.
And he kind of had Bischoff, the whole Hogan, Hall, and Nash had Bischoff in their back pockets. But I don't think Hogan was too much of a politician back then. I don't think it was till the WCW days. maybe it was all Vince McMahon because he figured, you know what, Hulkamania is running wild. Let's keep the ball going. I'm making money. I think he would have made more money putting the belt on Orndorff for 6 months, 7 months, even 4 months. Let them keep going because the fans would have re-energized. They would have freaked out because Hogan lost the belt and they would have been off and running again.
Yep.
I don't know. To me, it just makes sense, but hindsight, right? I'm sure Hogan, maybe Hogan and McMahon regret that too. Like, fuck, that could have been something, you know, but whatever.
I think that would have been a better storyline than Hogan and Warrior.
Yeah, I agree. So Hogan and Warrior, I mean, they had no choice but to put Warrior over. And it was kind of the first time there were two baby faces actually going to fight for a championship. And it's like, how do you do it? Especially back then because it hadn't really been done. But they had to put the belt on Warrior. They had no choice. And Hogan was taken off to make movies anyway.
Yep.
Because he had even admitted he was tired. He was burnt out. He needed to take a little time off. But he even said he's not ready. Warrior's not ready. Hogan wanted to drop it to someone else and have Warrior beat them because he wasn't quite there yet. Now, people just say, you know what, he was just selfish and Warrior was hotter than him. And Hulkamania was starting to trickle down a little bit. It wasn't as hot as it was back in the 80s. Maybe. Who knows? But, Hogan we'll leave it like this. Hogan was always known as a master politician. That's not going to work for me, brother. You know, we'll leave it at that. Maybe he didn't want to put Orndorff over. You know, because any matches Orndorff ever won, he only won by count out or disqualification. And you can't take the title off the champion like that, but good pick. Very nice belt. I went, for my number 7, I went with the Bulldog tag belts.
Okay.
Now, I didn't appreciate those belts because back when I didn't really start getting into WWF wrestling, we always knew Grand Prix wrestling around the Maritimes. Yep. I didn't start getting into WWF until around just before WrestleMania 2. So WrestleMania 1 had already happened. Or maybe I got into it after WrestleMania 1. But I saw on television, Valentine and Beefcake with those belts. And I was like, I didn't appreciate them until the Bulldogs won them. And I saw the Bulldogs with them. And I was like, those are damn nice belts.
Yep.
I have no idea why a tag team turned me on to a belt. I have no idea. But then they kind of retired the silver and they made them the gold belts. I think they did that. I think it was shortly after it was Tito Santana and Rick Martel beat the Hart Foundation for the tag team titles. And I think it was shortly after they won the belts. That's when they went with the gold belts. And then Demolition took it from them after not very long, and I loved it. I still have my Demolition 8x10 signed. I love it. I'm sorry, they're the greatest, one of the greatest tag teams, should be in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, that was my pick number 7, was the Bulldog tag titles.
Oh, that's a good pick. I will say this, one thing that I thought when the Bulldogs had the tag straps, I found the side plates, and maybe it was just the angle that I saw, but I found the side plates were a little too far off from the main plate, so it always kind of looked a little weird to me.
A little bit, yep. I know what you're talking about.
But those were always a good belt. For my number 6, I went with the WCW US belt.
Okay.
I see that. All I think of is Sting.
Now, which one? The one that has the 5 plates and the logo plate, or the one with just the big logo plate and one side plate on each side?
Well, 5.
Yeah, I don't know why they switched that. Why all these belts now have only 3 plates. I have no idea. It drives me up the wall. I'm trying to watch what I say here. But it drives me nuts. Yes, that U.S. title it's a beautiful belt. When they came out with that and they changed the United States Championship, I was like, oh my God. Because you were good at making shit like that back in the day. You made the big gold belt, like out of tinfoil, pennies, and cardboard, and a utility knife, and all that shit, right? And that was one belt I was like, Donald could make that fucking thing. I know it. You know, like...
I mean, I'd give it an effort, but I just the design on the eagle on the front, like it's so textured. That would be really tough to replicate.
That's going to
Um,
be, again, I said there's 5 belts I want to own. It's probably going to wind up being 6 or 7. That's going to be one of them. I
yep.
just love that belt.
I gotta say, like back whenever WCW was just getting big, they weren't wrestling in a studio anymore
Yep.
and shooting promos just off to the side.
Yep.
When they started to rise, and this would have been before the Nitro days and the Monday Night Wars and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, they still had WCW Saturday Night and all that
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
That was actually the U.S. title. I love the look of that belt more so than the big gold. I always loved the U.S. title.
Hands down.
So that's what
Have you ever tried White Owl whiskey?
No.
You got to try it, and I'll leave it at that. Okay, I'm going to go on to my... Where are we at here? That was your number 6.
Yep.
My number 6 is the 10 pounds of gold. The one that you started with. The early Ric Flair belts, the domed globe. Again, that's probably going to be one I'm going to own before my collection is complete.
Yep.
For years, I didn't appreciate it. It's just something, I guess, as you grow older and you see it a million times, and it is nice. And I did like the fact that the straps on the leather were so wide and so far apart. It was a nice fit. When I owned that belt, and it wasn't curved, that thing was almost as flat as a pancake, but it still fit very, very nice, which is funny because now everything's got a big ass curve in it, so it molds to your body almost.
Yep.
That was still a very nice belt, and it was only a replica, so I can imagine what the NWA had. No, it was just really nice.
No, that's good. That's a good pick.
Number 5.
So for 5, and this is where things are probably going to get weird. Just so you know, and you're probably going to be insulted by this. For 5, I went with the winged eagle. I thought, can I put that higher on my list? I can't really do it. I mean, it's a beautiful belt, and just you showing me the pictures of it, holy shit, they did a ton of work on that, and it looks super heavy. Like that, it looks like it's ring ready. The one that you have.
Mine weighs about 9 pounds, 8 or 9 pounds. Yeah.
I mean, it looks like Hitman or Hogan could just grab that and go to the ring with it.
Yep.
But I always liked the design of it. I thought it was a nice move whenever they moved on to that from the previous one. I think that would have been the one that Hogan had wore at Mania 3, and then he had the winged eagle at Mania 4 against Macho.
Yep.
At Trump Tower. Little side note, I looked that up the other day. That whole convention center shut down. I don't even think it's standing anymore where they had WrestleMania 4.
Is that right? 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was shut down in 2016, I think, or 17. I'll have to look it up. But I was curious the other day. I was just I was on my lunch, and I don't know why that popped into my head. Is Trump Tower Hotel and Casino is a convention center where they had Mania 4 and 5? Is that still open? And yeah, they shut the doors. Wow. I mean, it's run by Trump, so I'm not really surprised. But
it's run by who?
It was run by Trump.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. How many business ventures have failed? Trump Vodka, Trump University, Trump Tower. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, but he's still a billionaire.
I don't know how. But
no, you know what? The winged eagle, a lot of belt collectors, as nice of a belt as it is, a lot of collectors, it's in their top 5, but not in their top 3 of nicest belts of all time. Which is, I mean, it's surprising and it's not. But because there was so many variations of it, like different leather cuts, it was like the first one was dual plated. Then they went all gold. It is a very nice belt, but they're like over in IWGP in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yep.
Or whatever they call it. Those belts over there are beautiful. some of those, like especially like the older belts, oh my God. Like the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, not the new one they have now, but the one that they had before. That was absolutely gorgeous. Remember the big green? And the one that Hogan had first beat Sheik for, and it had all the names. Well, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship has plates on it like the Winged Eagle, but tiny strips of every person that ever won that belt. And every time someone wins it, they add another strip.
Holy shit.
Oh, it's beautiful. Like picture winning the Stanley Cup, and you put the rings on it. That's the way. When you get a chance, look up the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. It was It's a beautiful belt. It was a gorgeous belt.
You mentioned the comparison to putting the names on the cup. I imagine it probably weighed as much as the cup.
The IWGP?
Just with so many names?
Well, the names they put on, I don't think the plates were super thick. Like they were probably, I don't know, maybe 3-4 inches long, and they weren't very like wide, like maybe an inch, half an inch or something like that. Like literally just big enough to put their name. But Google it. It's and you'll see what I mean. It's a beautiful. They're beautiful titles. But yeah. All right. So where are we off to now?
Did you do your 5?
Oh no, you did. That's right. My 5 is the Big Gold.
Okay.
It's in my top 5. Now, I can't wait. I told you last night I ordered that book.
Yep.
I cannot wait. And I don't know how thick it is, but everyone in the belt groups talk about it. Like, it's an amazing read. And if you're a belt collector, you just have to read that book. And it gives the entire history of the Big Gold belt. They can't figure out how the top of that belt got bent. They think it happened sometime in 1988, but no one knows how, and no one knows who the champion was at the time, because someone screenshotted it, and what they say in the book was it looked like someone took it and threw it really hard, and the tip of that belt, the top of it hit something and bent, but no one knows. Flair has never talked about it. Sting has never talked about it. No one knows how it happened. But I would love to know how that happened.
It probably was Flair that did it. Like in a drunken rage.
Yeah, 4 a.m. Woo! Like, Jesus Christ.
No, that's a good pick. I mean, I've always had an appreciation for that one. I like the Big Gold more so than the WCW heavyweight belt that they came out with. Like
when Flair took that with him and they had to make the new one. There were only a couple guys that wore that. Vader wore it. Luger wore it.
Yep. Ron Simmons.
Ron Simmons. I think that, and then Flair might have had it once when he came back, but I can't remember. But I think that's it. It wasn't around very long, because whenever he came back, the Big Gold belt, since they had that one, they recognized that as the WCW title. They started calling the Big Gold belt the WCW International Heavyweight Championship or something like that for a short time. And then they just combined the two and they got rid of that new belt and kept the Big Gold or something. All right, you're number 4.
Okay, so number 4 for me, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise because I remember when they debuted this, I absolutely hated it. I hated the look of it. I thought the concept of this division was stupid. But the fact that it was worn by Owen Hart, I went with the WWF European belt.
Yep.
I don't know why I hated it. I thought the idea of, why do you have a European division? You hardly ever go over there to wrestle.
Yeah.
And maybe I just didn't get it. But I like the look of it. I was actually looking it up last night. Tara and I were actually talking about the Hart family and stuff like that. And I'm like, Owen wore that. And I Googled it and I'm like, that's actually a nice belt.
It actually is a very nice belt. I wish you guys would come up here. I've been to the Hart House at least 4 times.
Okay.
In Calgary. And I always swore that if we win Lotto Max and we win the $50 million or whatever, I'm getting a hold of, I'm getting a hold of the city of Calgary and say how much, because I'm buying that house.
Is it them that own it, or
The city of Calgary owns it, yes. Like
okay?
where it's at, it's all duplexes and houses around it. Stu Hart owned that whole area. Owned like 50, 60, 70 acres or something like that. Something stupid. And he just kept selling it off and selling it off. But the property that the home is on itself is huge. They used to have a ring right beside the house, and you could still drive a car through there.
Jesus. Is it? Didn't they declare that like a national monument or something like that? The Hart House.
They can what do they call it? There's a term for it.
Yep.
Like a heritage house or
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that. They did, and the city was actually trying to sell the house because they didn't want to keep it up. But I guess now it's almost like it's like a halfway house or something like that now. Like they ripped out the dungeon. There's nothing original. They did it all over, and there's people staying in it and stuff like that. Like it's because the house is huge. Like I mean, when you see this house, you wouldn't believe the size of it. You
Oh, Jesus.
absolutely would not believe the size of it.
Look at the size of the family. I mean, you'd need a place that big.
They had
You know?
12 kids.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, you'd need something that big.
But
But
no, the European title was, I was the same way. At first, I didn't like it. I was like, another loaf of bread.
yep.
That's the first thing I thought of, another loaf of bread. But no, it grew on me, and it is a nice belt. And again, there are makers in our groups that do oh my God, they make a gorgeous belt with like really deep etching. Oh,
Yep.
fantastic. So that was your number 4?
Yep.
Okay, my number 4, the NWA television title, the one Arn Anderson wore, that silver belt on red leather. Now it was
Yep.
on black leather
Red
too.
print.
What's that?
Yep. It was on red. It had red print on it too.
Yep. That's
Yep.
the most, that belt I used, and I still do to this day. I love the way that belt shines. Just
Yep.
a beautiful sterling silver belt.
Yep.
It is gorgeous. Now, and that's a belt that I'm going to own in my collection too. But I haven't decided. Oh yeah, by the time I'm done, I'm going to wind up spending 3,500, $4,000 on belts. By the time my collection is done, but that belt, I haven't decided if I like it on the black leather or the red. The red makes it seem to pop more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm old, I'm old school with the black leather too. You know, like
I know I'm the same way. I mean, to me, like a wrestling belt, the leather has to be black. If you're looking at like boxing, okay, you can color up the straps,
yeah,
but in wrestling, they've always been black. You got to keep them black. But something like that, I mean, if you want to keep it true to like what Arn would have worn,
yeah, you got to go red.
and the guys that wore it in that period, you have to go with red.
The guy that made my Winged Eagle,
Yep.
and I'll give him a pop for anybody that listens or if they're still listening to this podcast. F Club Belts. F Club by VK Belts. Makes a wicked Winged Eagle, and I've seen his World Television Championships too that Arn wore. Oh, dude, I just drool every time. But I'm such an impatient prick that something like that is going to take 3 to 4 months.
Yep.
It's going to take 3-4 months unless he's got it in stock, and he doesn't have. He never has that in stock. He's got a few belts in stock, like the Hogan 85, stuff like that. But I'm just so damn impatient. Okay, it's going to be 3-4 months. Okay, I'd message him 3 weeks later. How's that belt coming? You know, like I'm impatient. I can't help it.
Yep.
I just can't help it. So that was my number 4.
Yep.
What is your number 3? Now we're in the big guys.
So my number 3 kind of goes back with one of your earlier ones. I can't remember which one it was. Might have been 8 or 7. My number 3, I went with the Hart Foundation rendition of the tag straps.
Okay, yep. The Bulldog belts. Those are my number 7, yep.
Yep. You know, I think back to the tag division at the time, like you had, you know, the Hart Foundation, Demolition. I can't remember if the Killer Bees ever wore the strap.
Bees never had the belts.
Yeah.
Which was, they should have. They were a damn good tag team.
Yep.
But at the time, you had the Bulldogs. You had the Hart Foundation. You had the Dream Team. You had Volkov and Sheik. There were talks that they were going to get the tag team belts back too. The tag team division back then was really hot. and there was just no room for the Killer Bees to win those belts. I mean, if they were going to win them, they weren't going to beat the Hart Foundation. They damn sure weren't going to beat the Bulldogs. If they had a chance to win those belts, it would have been taking them off the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't in the cards for them, and it's too bad because they were good. They were really good.
Oh, they had some really good matches. Like
especially when they go under the ring and put those masks on. Oh, I remember Nana just going crazy over that. Oh, look.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I did not know this, but with one of the wrestling shows that I was watching recently, just kind of going back and like it kind of gives a detail about like the different wrestlers, how their careers went. I came across one for the Rockers, and this would have been a long time before the Barbershop when Michaels put Marty Jannetty through the window. It was a house show. It was a dark show. Hart Foundation against the Rockers. The top rope breaks off.
That was Saturday night's main event. That was
it was.
That was videotaped, and they won the belts that night. But
they won the belts, and then they're like, "Yes, sorry, you got to give them back."
Yeah,
and like it showed the entire match, and you can see Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty like leaving the ring with the belts. Like, well, this was uneventful.
Yay! When he finally did win the tag team titles, when Diesel came over, when Kevin Nash came over, they were in the locker room and they had the belts, and he was like, "This is the first time I ever won these." Because they took it away the first time, right? Have you seen Dark Side of the Ring? Have you watched any of those documentaries yet?
Dark Side of the Ring.
You got to find it. They should be all over YouTube and shit like that. They usually put them on. I just finished season 3 a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Oh, dude, they're incredible. Like when they say Dark Side of the Ring, it's hosted. Chris Jericho does the narrating.
Okay.
And he does a fantastic job.
Okay.
This season was really good. Well, they're all good. My God, they've talked about Owen Hart. They talked about the Dynamite Kid. They talked about Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit was a 2-episode show. Oh, dude, you want to see dark documentaries and the truth about shit? Find Dark Side of the Ring. Stream it, YouTube it, whatever. And there's 3 seasons. They're all absolutely amazing. The Chris Benoit one is really disturbing. The Owen Hart one is disturbing too because Martha Hart actually went to where he fell up on the scaffolding, and the ring was still set up because they considered it a crime scene. Right. And Owen's blood is still on the mat. And she said when he fell, like when you get close to that apron, that's the hardest part of the ring.
Yep.
And the 2x12s that were in that corner actually broke. That's how hard he hit after he bounced off the top turnbuckle.
Wow.
Like, it's disturbing. But you want to watch good documentaries? Check out Dark Side of the Ring. Okay, number 3.
That was my third.
Oh, sorry. It's my turn. Number 3 for me. You had it a little higher on your list. I had the United States Heavyweight Championship in WCW. Okay. Sting, Rick Rude. We already touched on it. The 5-plater with the logo plate. Just a beautiful, shiny gold belt. And it was the different paints, too. Like you were talking about the eagle and stuff. But the way they painted up that American flag. And just it's just enough said. If you've never seen the United States Championship back in the 90s, the early 90s, Sting, Rick Rude, the 5-plater and the logo plate, don't even waste your time with the late 90s 2000 United States Championship. It's garbage. All right, Donald, number 2.
Okay, so number 2, I went with the Intercontinental Belt, the Hitman Piper Perfect era. I like the one that Macho had dropped to Steamboat.
The Brasso.
What's that?
The Brasso belt. Yeah. Have you heard that story?
No.
That belt that he dropped to Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, if you look at it, like even before he dropped it and when Steamboat had it, it wasn't very shiny. That's because he tried to shine it with this stuff called Brasso.
Oh, Jesus.
And it strips everything off. So when he was shining it with this stuff, it took most of the gold plating off in spots. And McMahon absolutely lost his mind because that belt wasn't really that old. Tito Santana was given that belt when he beat Greg Valentine or Don Morocco. I can't remember. And the reason they made that belt was because I think it was Greg Valentine or Don Morocco lost it to Tito Santana in a cage match. And the Intercontinental title back then was on a green leather strap, and it just looked like tin. But Valentine or Morocco, I want to say it was Valentine, smashed it against the cage. I think it was Valentine. And you know what he did with it after that? What they did with that belt after? They just took it and threw it in the garbage.
What?
Yeah. Greg Valentine talked about it. It was, because I heard a shoot interview with him. And he said, if I had known what that thing would be worth today, I never would have thrown it in the garbage. Because they already had the new Intercontinental belt ready, right? So they gave that to Santana. That looked exactly like the one that we grew up on. Only it had the WWF logo was painted red, and the side plates were the exact same size.
Right.
On the one we grew up on, you had your main plate, and then the first two side plates were bigger than the second side plate, and there was no logo plate, and there was no gold tip. There was no tooling on the leather. But Macho Man screwed that belt when he put that Brasso on. And belt makers actually make that belt. They make a Brasso version almost exactly the way Randy Savage's belt looked when he lost it to Ricky Steamboat.
My God.
Yes.
I never heard that story.
Yep.
I never heard that story.
Again, Google it. You know what? YouTube it. Listen to guys talk about it. Savage lost his mind and McMahon shit himself. Because the belt wasn't old. That was a beautiful belt back then.
Yeah, that would have been almost next to brand new. But yeah, the only thing I didn't like about Macho's version of it, I didn't like the red block logo.
I didn't either.
I didn't like it. When they went to like the whole thing just being, gold with black in the background, blue on the globe. I mean, that's the shit for me. Just the Hitman Piper era of that belt. That's my number 2.
Don't forget about Honky. Longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time.
I got it. I have to tell you about this real quick. So one of the shows that I'm watching, it was about the life of Jake Roberts. It wasn't Jake Roberts, the big show that they were talking about with him and DDP.
Yep.
But it was former wrestlers talking about giving their opinion about Jake Roberts the character and Jake Roberts. You could never tell the difference. You didn't know who was talking to you.
Yep, they were both the same.
Yeah, he was very cryptic. And McMahon has even gone on record to say that too. He's like, I never knew which one that I was talking with. And so they're talking to Marty Jannetty and Honky in this hotel room. And
Marty Jannetty out of it?
Jannetty was actually the one trying to keep Honky on the rails.
Oh.
Honky, he was 3 sheets to the wind.
Well, he likes his vodka. Marty Jannetty is just a train wreck any day of the week with pills and alcohol anyway. But anyway, keep going.
So they're like, what was Jake like to work with? And Marty was getting ready to, he was like, we never really worked, but everybody backstage, everybody, schmoozing and, kind of hanging out and stuff like that. He said, Jake and I, we never really, it's not that they didn't get along. They never really interacted too much.
Yeah. And
he was going to say something else. And Honky just blurts out this 2-minute ramble, not even making any sense. And I'm pretty sure there's beer flying out of his bottle. I'll have to see if I can get the name of it and I'll send it to you. But yeah, I'm watching this and it's like, they're talking all these different wrestlers and then they get to Jannetty and Honky sitting there and I'm looking at Honky. One eye's going that way. The other's going that way. Split out of his mind.
See, he was always a big vodka orange juice guy. I knew that, but
yeah. I don't know. Maybe he had switched over to the beer because he either ran out or he was trying to come down for the night. But yeah, like Jannetty trying to keep him on the rails. I'm like, Jesus Christ, pot calling kettle black here.
I would love to see, if you can find that, send me the link. I'd love to see that. That's
I
what,
will.
if Honky's drunk, that's a total shoot interview. Like there's nothing off limits. My number 2 is also the Intercontinental Championship.
There you go.
So we've done it twice. Great minds again. I'm not going to beat it to death. Like you already covered it. It's the one we grew up on. It was the most beautiful belt there was back.
Yep.
I mean, aside from the United States Championship. Now,
Yep.
what I didn't like back in the day was in the WWF, they kind of did it, but not really. First of all, it was one of the most beautiful belts out there. Now, the NWA, the United States Championship, made you automatic. They had a ranking system. And
Yep.
the AEW organization, I don't know if they're still doing it, but 6 months ago they did. They had a top 10.
Okay.
And the TNT World Champion was not number 1 contender to the AEW Heavyweight title. The United States Heavyweight Champion was number 1 contender to the World Heavyweight Championship. The WWF kind of did this, but not really. The Intercontinental Champion was supposed to be number 1 contender to Hulk Hogan. And I'll just
Yep.
say Hulk Hogan because that's all. He was the champion in the 80s.
Yep.
But they kind of got away from it. Like Randy Savage had that belt 12, 13 months. We'll call it 12 months.
Yep.
He should have had a championship match, if they wanted to hold true to it, once a month. Because he was Intercontinental Champion. In the NWA, whoever had that United States Championship got the world title matches. Now, every now and then, the guy that's ranked number 2 under the U.S. champion, maybe the third ranked guy, will get a random shot in there too. But it was always the United States champion because that was guaranteed to be your main events. That was your main event on every fucking pay-per-view you had. Blah, blah. And WWF, and they still do that. They still just kind of throw contenders in there.
Yep.
Well, look at John Cena. Oh, I haven't wrestled in a year, but damn it, I've got a world heavyweight title match. Well, the only belt you have on is holding up your stupid looking shorts. Like it just, like I said, I hope AEW keeps doing it because I love, do you know that the NWA is still around and they have all the original belts?
Seriously?
Like the World Tag Team titles, the television title, the domed globe, the original 80s Flair belt. They got all those. And they still record it in a studio. It's all original NWA print. And
Really?
they're in a studio and they do the interviews at the desk. It's awesome. You can watch it on YouTube. You can. I can't remember if it's on the Fight Network or not. I think it's called the Power Hour. I can't remember. I could be wrong. But it's all NWA. And it's awesome to see all these original belts and recorded in a studio, and it's good wrestling too.
I'll have to check it out.
Oh, it's cool, man. Even like around the apron is all original NWA stuff.
That's amazing.
Oh, it's so cool. All right,
That's amazing.
you're number 1.
Did you do your number 2 yet?
Yeah, it was the Intercontinental title, same
Yeah,
as you.
yeah. Never mind. Okay, so this is where things might go a little sideways for you. I don't know. My number 1, and I think the only reason that it's the number 1 is because this feature, the Iron Sheik Big Green. And the reason that I picked that is that the design on the front, it was simple, but what I loved about it was the side plates.
Yeah.
It had every champion's name on there with the stand that they held the belt.
And who they lost to.
Exactly. That was my number 1, just for that cool factor. You brought up the Stanley Cup earlier on about the New Japan Wrestling and how they kind of do the same deal. I didn't know about that, but same idea though with the Iron Sheik Big Green. I love the size of the leather strap on it. My only beef with it is that I wish it wasn't green. I wish it would have been on black leather. I think that belt on like those plates on black leather, I think it would have been great.
I don't think so. Honestly, like that is the only belt in the entire world. I think those plates look good on green leather. I think if you put that on black leather, it just wouldn't fit. Now, I've never seen it on black leather, And I'm in a few different belt sites on Facebook, in a few different groups, but never saw the belt on black leather. It'd be interesting to see. I just don't think it would fit. It just,
See,
I don't know.
in my head, like I keep on trying to like picture a darker or like a really, really dark green. That might make it look a little bit more for my taste. Don't get me wrong. I love the look of the green. I would have loved to have seen it on black.
Gotcha. Yeah. Like, no, I totally agree. I want to see it on black too. Because honestly, I'm trying to picture it and I can't. I can't picture it on black leather.
Yeah. But no, that was my number one.
All right, my number one. I'm pretty vanilla and predictable on this. I went the Winged Eagle. As it was a toss-up. It was between the Winged Eagle. I had three: the Winged Eagle, the Intercontinental title, or the United States Championship, as far as the nicest belt. And the only reason that the Winged Eagle got the nod is, again, when you pick that belt up and the leather drops and you can just see that nice curved plate with those sidebars attached, that does it to me every time. And that's the only reason I went with the Winged Eagle. It was close. I sat there and I thought. It was almost the United States title. The U.S. title was almost number one. Winged Eagle was almost number two, and the Intercontinental title was almost three. But like I said, I'm pretty predictable. I had to go the Winged Eagle just because of that.
I was going to say probably playing a factor in that too is the fact that you're like constantly looking at it every single day. So.
Well, yeah. yes.
No, so now, I mean, it's a nice belt. When I see the Winged Eagle, I mean, automatically the first person that comes to mind is Hogan because he was the first one to wear it. The only thing that I thought was weird about that belt and seeing it with different wrestlers, like that's a belt that's meant to be worn.
Yes.
Like you're not carrying that down to the ring. Austin's image, like when he first won the belt before they switched over to the Big Eagle.
Yep.
Like him waving the belt around. That matches his persona.
Yeah.
It looked weird on Undertaker. Like him just carrying it. I'm like, it doesn't fit. I can appreciate him, like being the champion of the company, but I mean, it looked weird on him. It looked good on Brett.
The great thing about Brett was Brett wore it to the ring every time. He had it over his shoulder if he was giving an interview or a promo.
Yep.
But to wear it, he always wore it to the ring. He never put that thing over his shoulder, which I loved. Yeah,
like I mean, the Intercontinental belt. The Winged Eagle, like those are meant to be worn.
Yes.
But it just looked weird on Taker. It just didn't look right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I look back at, because he was never Intercontinental champion.
No.
He had a couple of tag belts. He never wore them. I think the only belt that's ever suited him, I've seen him wear, is the big gold, the World Heavyweight Championship. That's the only belt I ever like that doesn't look weird on him. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why.
Now, I will say this. I mean, since we're talking about the championship of WWF, WWE, where things kind of started going sour for me in terms of like the look of the belts is when they started coming out with the custom belts for whoever it was that was champion. So like when they made the Smoking Skull for Austin, when they made the Brahma Bull for Rock.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like,
it was starting to get stupid.
It was. It's like, are you your own champion? Like, you're supposed to be wearing the championship of the promotion that you're representing.
Then they came out with those abortions that John Cena had, those spinner belts. Those were the ugliest titles I've ever seen. In my life. And they were around forever. Like,
whoever was on the concept team that put those together, man, I'd love to know what strain of LSD that they were on, because my dear God, like those are nightmare fuel. Like gone from the days that when we first got into wrestling, So like, the traditional tag belts, the bulldog belts, if you want to call them, the intercontinental belt, the heavyweight belt at the time, and the changes that they made with that over the years. Even when they moved from the winged eagle to the big eagle, I did like that. I thought it was a little too big though.
It took a long time to grow on me, but it did eventually grow on me. But it took a
Yeah.
long time. It took like a year before I was like, okay, it's not bad.
Yeah. But yeah, that's when things started going south for me. And then I remember there was one night we just got talking about belts just through text message, and I came across this one belt. I'm like, what in the name of God? What abortion is that? And you're like, sadly, that's the new Intercontinental belt. I'm like,
Yes.
the person that made that needs to be fired.
Isn't that horrible?
Oh my dear God, man.
They
My
brought
God.
back that classic, beautiful belt, and they gave it up for the night they showed it, you
Yep.
could hear cheering at first, like, yay, and then people actually got to see it, and all you could hear was like, ugh. Like, it's horrible. I don't know who they got making the belts now. Not a
Yeah.
clue. But they're just, I mean, whoever's making them is only going by the designs that they're given.
Yep.
But I don't know who's designing them. I'm hoping it's not the belt maker, because
Well,
those are just horrible, horrible designs. They're off. They're god awful.
the guy that used to do the belts for the WWE, he apparently he passed away over the summer or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like he was the one that made the ones that we were used to seeing, growing up. And I gotta say, like my big beef, like I see like in the Brothers of the Belt page on Facebook, like people are posting, their current WWE championships. I'm like, it's just a gigantic logo.
That's
That's
all
it.
it is. Yep.
There's no flavor to it. They're personalizing the side plates. I'm like, my God, like,
See, they're doing that because, but now at the same time, that's smart marketing. Because whenever a champion, like there are some guys, and they're out there, that have a collection just of side plates. And every time someone wins that belt, if it's someone new that never won it before, well, you got to go out and pay $100 for a new set of side plates.
this is true.
It's ridiculous, but there are guys that have collections. They don't even have the belt. They just have the plates, like, and some of them, I guess, are pretty damn rare. Like, I guess there's a couple that Brock Lesnar had, and they're rare, I guess. Like, they're worth, you might have paid $90 for them or something, $100, but there are guys out there now willing to pay like $600-700 for them because they weren't around that long, or they sold out that quick.
Jesus.
But now I think it's, well, the titles aren't changing very much now. I mean, Roman Reigns is, Jesus, he's coming on 2 years now as Universal Champion, I think. He's past CM Punk. CM Punk was champion for like 440 some days or something.
Jesus.
But Reigns is past him. But I think some of the guys that have repeated as champion, for the most part, they just keep the same side plates as they had whenever they were first champion.
Right.
I'm assuming anyway. I don't know,
Right.
but again, smart marketing.
Yeah.
Now, I think it looks ridiculous, but I'm old school too.
Yeah. I mean, part of me wishes that they would, even if it was just for like a throwback version of, I don't know, Saturday night's main event or a throwback Raw night or something like that. Bring back some of the old belts. Like just dress the ring the way that you used to.
See, they still do that every now and then. Every
Okay.
few years they do that, but I think it has to do like I think it has to do with copyrights,
Right.
because like Reg Park, he was the creator of the Winged Eagle. And even with the WWE logo, I
Yep.
think now, I have no idea. I could be totally wrong. But I think they would need his permission
Okay.
to actually come out with that style belt. Now, unless they own the right, I don't know how it works. But I wish they would do that too, because back about 4 or 5 years ago, they took pictures with all like the big wrestlers at the time. They took Dean Ambrose, they took Roman Reigns, they took Kevin Owens, they took Seth Rollins, and they took pictures with them with the Winged Eagle, but there was no logo on it. but it was
Okay.
just the winged eagle, and it was a black background. It was like, oh my God. See, now look how gorgeous those belts are.
Yep.
And they had the tag teams with the old tag team titles, the old Intercontinental title. And it's like, how can you guys have this new crap? Like, even Bret Hart has gone on record and said the WWF belts look like shit.
Yep.
Like, they're just horrible. I don't know who comes up with these ideas, but they're not nice belts.
Oh, no, they're terrible. They're terrible. I mean, you take any kid, and have them design something, and I guarantee it would look better than what they're doing now. I don't know if the WWE is just trying to get their logo out there as much as they humanly possibly can. I mean, they've changed the branding on their building, like on the corporate office, to just the big WW in that, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, like, that's your company logo is basically the championship belt. Like, to me, there's no creativity there. There's no design. There's no,
well, and it's not even solid. It's literally just a W with a frame around it, and you can put your hand right through it, and they just take that and put it on leather, and then they make a cheaper version that they sell on WWE Shop for $500-600, and so if you want the ring accurate version, they sell that on WWE Shop too, with the real, like, stones and all that stuff, but it's $2,000.
Dear God.
Like, I would never. If it was a winged eagle or the old Intercontinental, absolutely. I would save my money for 1,000,000 years if I had to, and I would order it. But for that thing, no.
And some people do. Some people will go out, and you know what? I mean, to each their own. If that's what, like, if that's what someone likes, okay. Like, sure, we grew up old school, so we know what we like. I don't understand. Like, you're basically getting a frame and a strap. There's no creativity to it whatsoever. I mean, there is some writing on it as to, like, world champion, whatever. I haven't really looked at the fine print on it, but just eyeballing that thing from away, no. No.
And that was my sit-down talk with Donald about all the championship belts we like. 10-1. Great time. Great talk. It's great being back. Hope you guys had a great Christmas. Hope you have an absolutely happy New Year. Until next time, my name is Doug. This has been the Figure 4 Podcast, and I'm out.